You're watching Soul Seekers TV.
Welcome, Soul Seekers. I'm Patricia Wolfson.
And I'm Linda Krause-Barnett, and this week we are featuring Stephanie Levenston, who is an intuitive channel, and she's going to be teaching us about radical self-care.
And I love talking about this because typically we think self-care is like bubble baths and, I don't know what comes up for you, but I think when I talk to people about self-care, people's response is, I don't have time for that crap.
I was going to say, what comes up for me is a bubble bath. Sounds divine, but who the heck has time for something like that?
Or like mani-pedis or massages, like that's typically what we think about, but there's so much more to self-care. I mean, what do you do when you're like, having a rough day? What kind of thing do you go to in order to take care of yourself?
Yeah, and that's just it. I haven't up until now really done much,
you
know.
This episode.
And what was so great about talking to Stephanie was really highlighting the importance of taking the time to do that, and how being a better person on the inside, taking the time to make yourself better. And I always equate it to being on an airplane and them saying, put your mask on first, because if you have no air, how are you sharing it with anyone else? And that's the image that always comes up for me, because if I'm empty and not forcing myself to take the time for myself, then I feel like I have nothing to give. And that's been hard for me to do.
Absolutely. Self-care for me has become understanding that my short-term pleasure is not always in my highest good and highest healing. And I don't have to put the fear of missing out in front of my well-being. And that has been a huge, huge step for me, because I can tell you, and if you've known me in the past, you know that I'm never one to let up on a good party, a good drink, a good piece of cake, whatever that may be. I've always been an indulgent person, but I have learned to indulge mindfully in a way that feels really good for my body and for my spirit. It also means making time for myself when I need to make time for myself, whether that's to get a haircut, as I did yesterday, or whether that is to just rest. Sometimes I need to say no to things that I may want to do in order to say yes to myself with other things that have a bigger priority. And really, that's so much of what soul seeking is about, rebuilding a relationship with yourself. I had this crazy idea to go to Florida and go and visit Linda, who I'd only met one time before that day. And I put this information out there, and at some point we'll tell you the whole story, but Linda was like, yes, come to Florida. And we ended up spending like 4 days together, and we had the most amazing time.
And when you are with people who share your vibe and your frequency and your energy, the world kind of seems to open up, and portals seem to open, and magic happens. So this is the beginning of some very, very cool shit. Yo.
Yeah. Absolutely. Who knows what's going to come of this, because this weekend has been truly transformational, and I use that word a lot, but I don't use it lightly, because I feel that anything that you do where you are saying yes to yourself, saying yes to those teeny little voices or those quiet little voices in your head, that you are going to feel that transformation. You are going to feel that shift in your life. And I said yes this weekend, as did Linda, as did Ines, and Kamari.
Kamari, we see you. We love you.
We miss you. We said yes to this weekend that just was kind of pulled together on a whim, and it really has been such a wonderful experience. And the best part is that all we did was plant a couple of seeds, and I have absolutely no doubt that these seeds are going to evolve, they're going to grow, they're going to be given our love and sunlight and water over, who knows how much time. But what's going to blossom from here is going to come from pure love and from pure connection, because that's what this weekend was about.
Doing all the things that sound fun to us, we're doing it together, and we're taking everybody along for the ride.
Try to keep my mind open at all times for any type of possibility that can happen, that will enrich me. There's a dark shadow side to that, and if I listen to the alternative and the other voice inside, then I find myself stagnant. I find myself not expanding or exploring and growing. And usually I'm not feeling too good physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So I decide to be a soul seeker and do things that nourish me and make me feel good inside and help the world grow and prosper spiritually and mentally and psychologically and physically, because otherwise, what else is there?
Self-care almost feels like an obligation, but taking care of yourself, is how I've started to reframe it, is different, right? Like in being mindful of what you eat, being mindful of what you think or what you watch, being more mindful of how you treat your vessel,
Right.
or even your space around you. Like, how are you taking care of yourself so that you are acting and behaving and walking around in your best capacity?
Absolutely, and I just kind of had a little
thought.
Yeah, I was gonna say like slogan come to mind, but the reframe for me that I learned from Stephanie was that self-care is the best way to take care of others.
As a mom, you kind of have to stop and really think although it feels like stopping to take care of yourself or really doing things for yourself sometimes feels selfish, but if we're not taking care of our children also, number one, they need the example of what it's like to take care of yourself, and number two, we're not acting in our best interest or their best interest if we are run down and not happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think she gives us some really great tools and resources on what self-care looks like. And that, as Trish said, there's bubble baths and manis and petties, but she did a great job of opening up our mind to what else radical self-care means and how to apply it daily so that we have a way to tune in to ourselves so that we can best help serve others.
Absolutely. So stay tuned.
We hope you enjoy.
We are here with Stephanie Levenston, and you are an intuitive channel, correct?
Yes.
So what I'd love is for you to tell me a little bit about what that means and to give me your perspective on intuition and how you've learned to define it for yourself and for others.
Perfect. Thank you for having me, first of all. When I call myself an intuitive channel, what I'm referring to is that I have learned techniques to clear myself from the inside so that I'm able to receive messages from spirit, from divine energy, from whatever you want to call that, from souls actually. So I communicate with from the soul perspective of beings that are here on the earth, as well as those that have transitioned, as well as different entities, our guides, those that are in non-physical form that are here to support us on our journey. So I have found ways to keep myself open and clear and receptive in order to hear clearly those messages so that I can channel those, bring them through to support my clients in their journeys. My clients ask specific questions about where they're at in their lives, whether it's personal or professional, and we can tap into their own soul or any souls that are here on the planet with them, and I bring in the messages for them that are available to support them on their journey. So that's what I'm referring to when I call myself an intuitive channel.
Stephanie, if you can, give us your definition of intuition and what that word has come to mean to you and what you would like the audience to understand about that word and its significance.
Intuition for me is really that inner voice of wisdom. It's that more subtle voice within each of us. We are all intuitive. We all are sixth sensory beings. We just don't all trust that inner voice, and we don't all learn to discern it from the voice of ego or the voice of fear, which is a louder voice. So it's really our job to align our energy with a more subtle realm so that we can perceive that intuition, the voice of inner wisdom. It's always loving. It's meant to be our guide and support us on our journeys. It's never going to create fear or have to assert itself in a really loud, overwhelming way. Eventually, if we ignore it long enough, we do get kind of bops on the head as reminders, yes, that to listen to our inner guidance. And we all know when that's happening, and we all kind of do that, you know, palm to the forehead, why didn't I listen to the early signals of that? But really, it's that soft, subtle, loving voice that guides us from within. It's, I believe, connected to source energy. I believe we are a divine spark, and it's meant to be our guidance system. And it's my joy to teach people how to access that, because we all have it. We all have the ability to operate from that intuitive perspective.
One of the things that we wanted to talk about was being able to discern the loud voice of fear versus the soft whisper of intuition. So how does that look? And how can we make the distinction so that we can control volumes and have a better idea of what we're listening to when we hear the thoughts and the voices in our minds?
Excellent. So this is a challenge, right? For all of us.
Definitely.
I have not yet met someone that does this with
Naturally.
ease. Yes, all the time, on a daily basis. It's a daily practice. I feel we have to dedicate and rededicate ourselves, to our capital S selves. I call that our higher self, our soul. I'm not the expert on anybody else other than me and what works for me. So as I allow for the messages to come through, what I have noticed in everyone is that it is not anything, they're never guided towards anything external. It's all guided towards that own inner knowing. And here's what most of the clients say to me: I think I knew that. And I say, yes, you did. I am not likely to tell you anything that is brand new information. Occasionally that comes through. But I am likely to tell you something so you hear it in such a way that it settles in deeper to your already knowingness. And that's your intuition. And so it is just another piece that lets you settle deeper into that own self-trust that you're meant to have. So that's sort of the magic of it, and what I
You're
love
like
about
volume
it.
Control, right? Yes. So it's back to you being able to turn one down so that we can hear so much clearer the other sound. Okay.
One thing that I would like you to discuss with our viewers is radical self-care. So not only to define what you mean when you say radical self-care, and to not be so afraid of the word radical, because it does have its purpose, and how that plays a part in aligning and connecting with our intuition.
For me, I term radical self-care as something that's really essential for toning down the volume, as you say. If we are loving ourselves, if we are self-compassionate, self-loving, self-accepting, that is an immediate attunement to that voice of intuition, because it's a loving voice, it's a self-loving voice, and if we are loving the self, then there we go. We're kind of matched up with that, and we can hear that and perceive that more clearly. So when I talk about radical self-care, I mean everything that you would do, from giving your body really good care, exercise, proper hydration, excellent high-quality nutrition, sleep. Did I mention sleep? Sleep is really, really important. Good friendships, time with our children, our families, our animals, things that refuel us, things that bring us joy, all of that. And we all have a list of those things that bring us that peace and that joy. And we should actually be doing at least 2 or 3 of those things every single day. That's what I call the radical self-care. You'll find that when you engage in that with regularity, you will crave more of it, so give yourself more of it. It will bring you into alignment with your intuitive voice, and you will no longer feel separate from it, like you're trying really hard to listen for it, right? It doesn't need to be effortful. If we're balanced in alignment and loving ourselves, then we naturally are connected to our intuition. And I think as women in particular, we are taught to deliver and deliver and deliver to others, and then to not have anything left for ourselves. But what is true about the over-delivering model is that we don't have what we have to offer is really the leftovers, is really like crumbs when we do not do the radical self-care, because it is the honoring of ourselves as worthy beings that sends the signal universe-wide to bring in all the energy that we need for everything that we need it for, through that energy of love, of self-love. So it is not as hard to do. I think it's the word radical that makes people like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a big deal. But the reason I call it radical self-care is because it is a daily practice, and it sounds radical because our culture doesn't support us in doing this. But we cannot wait until the culture supports us in doing this. We actually have to step into it now, because we are rising to a time in our planetary existence, I believe, where we really need to be powerful women and men. We really need to be in our fullness, not only for ourselves and our families, but for the entire world at large. And when we do so, we give others permission and the model to follow to also do so. So it can be, this is what I recommend. Create a list, write down 25 things that you do simply for enjoyment. Things that bring you pleasure, things that make you happy, ways that you like to spend your time, things you like to eat, places you'd like to go, a certain exercise you love to do. I'll give you some examples what's on my list, and you can move on with that and create more on your own list. At the top of my list, I always say, is dark chocolate, and I'm very serious about that. Dark chocolate is really important to me as part of my radical self-care, as is yoga, as is meditation, as is play time with my children and my pets. We really need to access our playful nature more if we want to be in alignment with our intuition. The intuitive side is not this serious, oh, we have to work really hard at it side. It is a playful energy. And so when we allow that for ourselves, we can have more access to our intuition. And then your list can include things that are more of a reach, like perhaps you want to ski the Swiss Alps. Perhaps you want to take a trip to the Bahamas. Whatever has been on your list of things that you would really like to have the experience of, put that down there too. And then every day, just pick one or two things that you can do that day. Some people like journaling. That's also on my list. It really helps me to put feelings to paper, because when we put something on paper, we create space in the mind, space in the heart, more openness. Those are some examples, and it's doable. Your radical self-care only has to take like a couple minutes a day, but it can be so nourishing and can be a real reset button to your energy. So I'm offering your listeners access to my spiritual boot camp, I call it. And I developed this during a time, I think it was a year or two ago, when we were coming off the holiday season, and all the gyms are running their specials, boot camp, this and that, and get your body back in shape. And it occurred to me that our soul, our spirit, is the only thing we take with us when we leave our bodies. So there's all this focus on our bodies and making them strong and flexible and how they look, and that's important because that has to do with feeling good. But we actually leave the body behind, and so why are we not nourishing the soul? Why are we not nourishing our spirit? So I created Spiritual Boot Camp, which is a series of activities in a lighthearted, fun-loving way that sometimes you have heard of, some of them you've heard of perhaps, some of them maybe not. They include things like using card decks as a source of connecting to spirit, oracle cards they're called, and those are really fun. And they also include things like smudging, burning sage, which is a beautiful way to clear your energetic field as well as the field around your home. I smudge my children when they come home from school if they've picked up some funky funk, and they almost always do. A lot of other activities in there, and then there's a written portion as well, so you can follow the modules in writing, you can follow them through video, and just have fun with it. So that's the gift that I'm offering to your listeners.
And Stephanie, if you could tell everybody exactly how they can get onto your link and access the special gift that you have to offer.
Absolutely. So you'll go to my website, www.stephanielevenston.com. You will click on Spiritual Boot Camp, and you will enter the coupon code GIFT from Stephanie. No spaces, no dashes, just GIFT from Stephanie, and you will have it.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here and for sharing your wisdom and your guidance, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Here's the deal with self-care. We think it's a luxury. We think that, like, oh, it would be nice if I took care of myself, and you know, and yes, I will try to make time for that. But I think that the truth is self-care is as important as showering, eating. It should be a part of your day. It is a necessity. In order to thrive and grow and be good at anything, you need to care for you. And it's not selfish. That's a myth. You know, taking care of yourself is a necessity. It's important. It makes you happy, healthy, and more prepared to accomplish your goals. I think that the word self-care has been misconstrued as a luxury, but it is not. It is a necessity.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Soul Seekers TV.
Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And share, and follow us on Instagram. And if you need any more information on our show or on any of the experts, then go to our website,
SoulSeekersTV.com.
Yes, what she said. And if you have any ideas of where you think our next soul-seeking adventure should lead us, then by all means send us an email through our website. We can't wait to share more of our adventures with you.